Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k Tyranid. So we've got a full unit review today. This time we're going to be looking at the Tyranid Pyrovore from the Tyranid Index. Now I say index because not long now we're going to be getting the Tyranids Codex. So a lot of this stuff is going to change, but for this current time we're still in the index launch and we're going to be talking about the Pyrovore today. So let's get straight into this, and we're going to be talking about the points to begin. On the rear side of the date card we have 30 points per model. But it used to be 40 points, so we've actually saved 10 points there per model, and we can have unit sizes between 1 and 3. Every model in this unit is equipped with the flame spurt and the chitin barbed limbs, and they're of course infantry, so there's not really much else to go on there. So we're going to flip this card over and start on the statistics. So the movement is the same, it's 5 inches, pretty slow really. Toughness has gone up to toughness 6, nice. 3+ armor save, the wounds has gone down to only 4, not so nice. Leadership 8+, and objective control is 1. So if you've got them within synapse, then that leadership isn't that big of a deal. But if they're not in synapse, then potentially you do lose your OC, but it is only 1. But 1 is better than nothing, I suppose. But you also lose the stratagems, which, to be honest, nothing really relates in terms of stratagems, and they're not really going to fall back. So having battle shock, I don't think is a big deal. Not a big deal for me. Let's get into the ranged weapons. We've got the Flame Spurt. Now in the previous edition we used to have 2 profiles with this weapon. They've now been kind of merged into one profile, and let's see what they've got. So they've got the Ignores cover ability. They're a torrent, so they're automatically hitting, you don't need to roll to hit. And they're twin linked, so you are re-rolling all your win rolls. Not too bad. It's only 12-inch range. We did previously have the Pyro Gout, which was 18-inch range. It's now only 12. Not the biggest range. Maybe it's something more to do with, anti-deep strike. When let's say some Terminators come in from deep strike more than 9 inches away, and they're looking to get onto our home objective, then we could maybe do Overwatch, because Overwatch you don't need to roll to hit, you don't need 6s. Maybe that's something you could do there. Now the amount of attacks you got is D6 + 1. Okay, you don't need to hit because there's no ballistic skill. Strength is 6. -1 AP, the better weapon used to be -2 AP, and the damage is only 1, it used to be 2, so we've kind of lost a bit of AP and damage there. I think the damage does hurt slightly. Damage 1 is quite so-so, especially with D6 + 1 attacks. I think damage 2 was probably fair, but it is what it is. Now unfortunately there's going to be no synergy with the hyper adaptation from the index, because of course all 3 of the hyper adaptations revolve around actually hitting, rolling to hit. So the sustain sits 1, you need a critical hit of a 6. The same applies to lethal hits and the precision ability. So none of this does apply to the hyper adaptation because we're simply not rolling to hit, which is unfortunate. Now in terms of the melee side of the weapon, you've got the chitin barb limbs. Now we used to have some sort of fist, didn't we? The blood going fists. They used to be reasonably okay with high AP. We've lost all that now. So what do these limbs do? Well, first of all, 2 attacks, not 3. So we've only got 2 attacks. Weapon skill 4+, that's worse as well. The strength is only 5, so that's worsened. The AP used to be -3 AP, it is now 0 AP. So we've lost a ton of AP there, and 1 damage, which is what it was. So these guys are not really fighting that great in melee anymore. 2 attacks, half the times you are missing. It is strength 5, but no AP, 1 damage. Yeah, pretty poor, really. Ability side, you've only got the 1 core ability of Deadly Demise 1. So if one model does get destroyed, on a roll of a 6, it will inflict a mortal wound to anything within 6 inches, and that could potentially include its own unit if you've still got 2 more or maybe 1 more Pyrovores within that unit. So you've got to watch out for that, they could be exploded onto their own models. Synapse, of course, is the faction ability. We spoke about that already when we were talking about the statistics. And the unique ability is Burning Spray. So in your shooting phase, after this unit is shot, select one enemy unit that was hit by 1 or more of these attacks. To the end of the phase, that enemy unit cannot have the benefits of cover. Now that is quite an underrated ability personally, because 10th edition there's a lot of cover. It's almost impossible to not get cover nowadays because cover is so easy to get. So removing cover from a unit for your entire list could be pretty decent. Now of course if there's a 3+ armor save and there's no AP to the weapon, then they're not actually going to gain any benefits of cover anyway. So sometimes it is situational anyway, sometimes it doesn't make any difference. But we are removing cover, and don't forget we've actually got Ignores cover with our own weapon here, the Flame Spurt, so it actually kind of starts from as soon as you start shooting at that unit, realistically. But it's an okay ability, and I don't mind it. Now in terms of synergy, we're severely lacking in the synergy department for the Pyrovores with the Index launch. Of course, when we do get the Codex and we're going to have 6 detachments, maybe there's some more synergy there. But at this current time, there's not much. I mean, the stratagems don't really relate. The hyper adaptation doesn't really relate. The only things that do relate are the auras. So you've got the Venom Probes with the File Spawn Aura to gain the benefits of cover and also stealth. You've got the Zone Throats for the 6+ invulnerable save, and the Psychophage to give the 6+ for no pain save. That's if you've got any of those units within 6 inches of your Pyrovore. You could have all 3 and stack them all together quite nicely. That's a pretty decent defense for any backline, really. Let's move into the battlefield role and the secondary missions. So what is the battlefield role for the Pyrovores? Well, the deep strike blockage, in my opinion, you're sticking 1 at the back of either side. That's going to prevent your opponent from coming in. Again, I'm going to use the example of 10 Terminator models coming in. Or obviously, it's going to be very difficult to screen off everything because you've only got 1 model. Unless you've got 3, then that's a little bit better. But ideally, for 30 points, you could just split these up into 2 or 3 units, and that's going to cover more ground. They're also good for Overwatch because you don't need to roll to you don't need a 6 to hit. You're automatically hitting with your Overwatch for 1 command point. That could be useful. And they're going to be assisting with secondary missions. So I've got a little list here of the secondary missions that they could get involved in. There's of course other ones they could optionally get involved in, but these ones are the ones that they're probably more likely to deal with. So extend battle lines, that will include holding one of our own objectives. They're not really going to go too far out. So holding our objective alongside another unit that can hold one in the no man's land, they can assist with that. Investigate signals is to do with all 4 of the corners. Maybe you've got 1 or 2 of the Pyrovores in our corners in our own deployment zone, so they can deal with that. Defend stronghold, again, that's to do with our deployment zone. Maybe they're going to be part of a cluster of units that's going to be within our own stronghold. And engage in all fronts, maybe they're going to be in 1 of the quarters, maybe 2. But realistically, they're not going to go past the halfway line of the actual battlefield. They're just too slow. Let's move into the pros and cons, in fact, for the Pyrovores. First of all, start with the pros. 30 points for a single Pyrovore, that's very cheap for something that can do what it can do. It's cheap for, well, this is the next reason, in fact, they're cheap for a deep strike block. A 9-inch bubble around that one single 30-point model is going to deny deep strike, which is good. They're easy to hide behind cover because, again, it could be one single model, and they are infantry as well. They're removing cover from a targeted unit, which will help other units such as your Zone Throats, your Exocrines, your Tyranids, for example. They don't really want to be giving cover to enemy units, so you could remove it with the Pyrovore, although it is only 12 inches, I suppose. They're decent for Overwatch as well. As for the cons, they're lacking index synergy. The stratagems don't really relate, and nor does the hyper adaptations. They're very slow, only 5 inches. The melee profile is pretty bad now. The range attack only is 12 inches, so the ability isn't going to really work on those further units. Again, the Tyranids, the Zone Throats, they're sort of looking at 24 inches plus, so yeah, they're not going to be helping that much, only really in your own deployment zone, I suppose. They can explode into one another, which, you know, it's not likely, and even if it does, it is only 1 mortal wound, I suppose. And finally, they're only object control 1, so even if they are defending our own stronghold, even a unit of 3 of them is only 3 OC. Not hard to take over, really. But for the Planet 40k rating today, for the Pyrovores, I'm going to go down the middle. They get a 3-star rating for me. They're so cheap for what they can do. Just for the deep strike alone, I think is worth it. But then the added extra of the firepower that they've got. For 30 points, what more can you want, really? I think they're doing a good job, so that's why they got a 3-star rating today. So guys, make sure you are subscribed if you are new. Of course, make sure you are liking the video as well. And thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.